Okay, so we're going to move on to... Go right ahead. She's ready. Katie is our sign. So, okay, you guys ready for the 30s? Of course you are. So the 30s are very different than the aptly named Roaring 20s, of course. It's a very somber time. There's the Wall Street crash of 1929, and really the Depression just had a very sobering effect on the attitude and the clothing styles of the time. Yeah? The Depression era mood is really reflected in clothing in this quite amazing way. Clothing styles became less extravagant in the 30s than in the 20s. A kind of softer, more feminine look replaces this androgynous flapper over-the-top look that was popped in the 20s. Clothing became more feminine and sweet and genteel by day and more glamorous by night, and really reflected, the glamour night was really reflected on the silver screen, certainly. And for men, this was the dawn of the business suit. And all these 30s looks really they're iconic today. And you're going to really recognize them in clothing that you wear now. Okay, come on out, Eva. So Eva's in a lovely 1930s dress. Importantly, the hemline has dropped in the 30s dress. And the feminine waistline returns. A soft feminine look replaces the boyish flapper look of the 20s. This dress is really reflective of the conservation and thrift vibe of the Depression. It's beautiful, but a little more conservative than what you'd see in the 20s, yeah? Thanks, Eva. Here's Cheryl in a very 1930s dress here. Hemlines have lengthened in the 30s and the waist is featured, unlike the 20s, yeah? And importantly, with the 30s came a new method of garment construction, and this is called the bias cut. This is an important feature in 30s clothing. So the bias cut technique it's a way of cutting fabric so that the fabric will drape and hang and stretch over the body, and it really adds this flirtatiousness and like an elegant quality to clothing. And it always highlights the female waistline and the hips. It's an interesting comparison in that the waistline had been gone in the 20s, yeah? Thank you. Here's Kim. So again, femininity returns to dresses during the Depression, using that bias cut. So besides highlighting the waist and feminine curve in 30s clothing, they also started to pay attention to the neckline and the bust of the garment. They would have gathers and buttons and details like you see here on Kim's dress, on the shoulders and right in the bust there. Those are some great sleeves on that dress. That's good stuff. Come on out, Sarah. Wow, check this out. Sarah's wearing a classic 1930s dress with all the 30s hallmarks. This dress is phenomenal. Phenomenal. So many great things to do. Hemlines had essentially hit the floor within a few years of the Great Depression. The look is all about elongation, long slim lines, draped over a lady's curves. Waistlines are featured. The bust becomes emphasized with gathers there. And they paid attention to sleeves at this time. Beautifully feminine sweet dresses were made during the 1930s. Not to mention the crazy good heels. Oh my gosh. Beautiful, thank you, Sarah. Here's Lucy, again the 30s. It's all about a tall, slim look. The bias cut gives it that flow around the body. So the bias cut is, it's a method, let me tell you what it is. So you cut the fabric at a 45-degree angle to the crossweave, and it gives this drape effect. So notice the attention they give to the sleeves and the bust. And in the 30s is when they started to pay attention to the back of a garment. And you can see it here in these little vents that she has. Maybe you can almost see them. Yeah. And great hat. It was all about hats in the 30s too. Here's Mary. This is a really special dress, and it features some major 1930s hallmarks. The skirts were nice and long. Tall, slim look was popular. Very different from the token look of the 20s, yeah? And it's only been a few years. Amazing to me. So no beading or reckless spending in this dress. Feminine beauty was really the look of the time. And the bust is emphasized, and there's accentuation at the waist. And the back is exposed. That really must have been something to see a bare back for the... No, I just can't imagine how that would be. And the 30s is the dawn of printed fabrics, often in these big flowers like this. And the shoes, check them out. This is the introduction of the strappy sandal. Nice. We'll talk about shoes later. Thanks, Mary. So the outfits of the 30s, we kind of associate with like luncheon with high society or tea time or garden tea parties. And importantly, this is a time of a nice dropped hem. It's all about elongation. The bias cut, the waistline is featured, shoulders are featured, exposed backs. It's very feminine, unlike the 1920s. And it's interesting to me that this conservative dropped hem and the femininity happens during the Depression, of all things. It seems to me that when economic times are tough, you often have these feminine themes come out in clothing. Go figure. Okay, let's bring out our next girl. I think it's Kelly. So Kelly is wearing a chocolate brown velvet dress. This color is so 1930s. So one notable feature about Kelly's dress here. Oh gosh, it's such a beautiful dress. One notable feature about her dress is this introduction of 2 tones of fabric being used in a garment. And you can see it here in that blue under the brown velvet in the shoulder. Can we see it? Yeah, we got it. Okay, there it is. So the introduction of 2 tones into garments here in the 1930s. And it's got great puff sleeves, got a great bias cut and a beautiful little defined waist. And she has great deco shoes on. Total Depression right there. Those are awesome. Thanks, guys. Here's Kara. Kara's wearing a really cool example of what you might see around the town in the late 30s. And it has some really great 1930s trends and fads represented on this dress. It's got a nice wide cut collar. And it's got great detailed top stitching and these novelty buttons that became popular at the time. And this is the time when Western wear actually kind of began. And in the 30s, the locker was introduced into clothing. You guys know what the locker is? Anybody have a guess? I know you know what it is. It's the zipper. That's the name of the zipper back then. Okay, so in the late 30s and early 40s is the time when you start to see the zipper used in clothing. So if a garment has buttons in it, if you go to the vintage shop and the garment has buttons in it, you know it's probably from before the 40s. So take that info with you to the vintage shop. And she's got a great, oh my gosh, good stuff, great 30s hat. And worn in an angle, just like they would in the 30s. Nicely done, Kara. Here's Susanna. So this is actually a modern take on a 30s dress, but I wanted to discuss something in particular about it. That looks so good on Susanna. Okay, with the 30s, like I said, with the introduction of the 2 tones, they started to do contrasting fabrics in garments, and they were often these stylized cuts of fabric fitted into diagonals. This really began in the 30s, but was certainly used in the 40s. It's a very deco look, very film noir. Beautiful, thank you, Susanna. Okay, here's Anna B. So pants were first worn in the 30s. These pants were sewn actually off a 1930s pattern. I just think that's really cool. It has something to do with women taking on working roles, I think. So pants at the time were high-waisted, like kind of 30s clothing with the emphasized waist. And this is definitely a look that was embraced by who? Katharine Hepburn, exactly. That's exactly right. Katharine Hepburn in the 40s. Thanks, Anna. Okay, so next up we're going to do 30s evening wear. Oh my gosh, so 30s evening wear, it's the best. It's good stuff. Okay, the 30s really defined evening wear in a way that we still really use today. So I want to pay homage to that. The gowns could be slipped over the head and would come alive when put on the human form. They're all very long and drapey and all very Grecian goddessy. So when you see a 30s gown like sitting in a vintage shop or you see it in a pile of clothing in your attic, it doesn't look like it's anything, but you put it on and it's amazing. It's a bias cut. Anyway, this is good news for the clothing divas. And here, she's here. Wow, okay. Here's Angie. And she's got a lovely silver gown on from the 30s. The silver is definitely a very 30s color. And it was all about glamour. Long hemlines dropped to the floor, unusual cuts of fabric fit into the diagonals, and it was all about that low cut and exposed back. Really novel and first done in the 30s. And it's definitely a look embraced by the silver screen celebrities. This look has never gone out of style. It's still popular today. I actually sewed this off a pattern from 1931. How did I do? Here's Sarah. Sarah is in a revolutionary late 20s, early 30s dress, and it's an incredible example of the Art Deco movement with these stylized cuts of fabric fitted into diagonals. And it has that really cool little tension on the shoulder there with the butterfly sleeves. And that dotted pattern is so deco, late 20s, early 30s. This is a really, really special piece. Here's Kelly. And this is an Egyptian theme inspired gown, certainly, with the use of gold and orange. It's just brilliant. So deco, avant-garde, Egyptian inspired. I love it. And it's got those 30s dress construction details of that long dropped hemline. The waistline is emphasized. And the emphasis is moving to the back of the garment there with an exposed back and that long godea fabric. It's just beautiful. Oh, and the sleeves, of course. Did I even mention that the sleeves were gold themes and clothing. Very, very deco. And fabulous deco heels, as donated by somebody in the audience here. Look at those things. We got a lot of girls on the stage. You guys can make it happen. Here's Danielle. Oh my goodness, this is beautiful. Danielle is wearing a lovely 1930s slip dress with all the 30s hallmarks. It's got that nice long hemline and Madame Viennese bias cut method used here, giving it that flow and femininity. Attention to the bust, of course, in the garment. And the shoulders. And this like deco style rhinestone overlay is totally a 30s feature. It's just beautiful. Show us your sleeves, Danielle. Oh, thank you. Here's Robin, and she's wearing a late 30s red velvet evening gown. The color is so luscious, 1930s evening. Ugh. So, if you see a gown like this at a vintage shop, I insist you buy it. And if you see it in if you have it in your attic, you could donate to the show next year. How about that? So, it's got the gathering at the bust and the big puffy sleeves. This was a look really embraced by Joan Crawford. She really went to town with the big sleeves. And that draping around the hips is accomplished with that bias cut. And it's got the back tie around the waist. This is a feature that starts in the 30s, and we use it all the time today. It started in the 30s. Barely see it. And she's got great shoes on there. Oh my gosh, so 30s. Those are beautiful. Thank you guys. So the shapes of 30s clothing are, they're conservative, but they don't hide any femininity, yeah? So what are the 30s hallmarks, everyone? What have we learned? Bias cut, yeah, did I say it enough? Yeah, with the sleeves, yeah? It's got a nice long hem. The open back, yeah? Snug at the waist. And the pants, yes. Okay, very good. Let's talk about shoes, yeah? Best part. Okay, Kelly Walsh, Kelly Porter, Robin, Sarah, Cheryl, let's see, Mary, Eva, Danielle, Kara, Anna B, and Susanna. Everybody come on up here. Okay, so these shoes are something. We need to just take a good solid look at these things. Beautiful. Okay, so the 1930s is like the time they introduced the strappy sandal. Slip-on and lace-up Oxfords were worn. This is the introduction of two-tone or spectator shoes at this time. The open toe was introduced in the 30s. And ankle straps, strappy sandals and ankle straps started at that time. You don't see platforms yet, not until the very late 30s. If you had a lot of money, you could buy a pair of Salvador Ferragamos. He was the one that did the platform in the late 30s. And metallics, yeah? All 30 shoes. Thanks, girls. Okay, next up, we're going to feature some men. I know. Oh, gosh. Okay. So the 1930s is thought to be essentially a high point in men's suiting, even despite the Great Depression. So here's Ryan. So the 1930s, the dawn of the men's business suit. And the details are iconic and handsome. This is time of fitted double-breasted jackets with wide squared shoulders, diagonal breast pockets, wide lapels, and it creates this V-shaped look on the man. This is the deco look. And the double-breasted suit was just the height of fashion in early men's suiting. And he's got great cap-toe shoes on, introduced in the 30s. Thanks, Ryan. Here's Chris. Chris is in a double-breasted suit. So this particular style of double-breasted suit was called the Windsor double-breasted London drape suit. And this is made popular by the Duke of Windsor in the late 1930s. That kind of suit, this type of suit features has low buttons and wide angled pointed lapels. Shoulder pads were added to suits at this time, creating that square shoulder. And then a drape over the shoulder area there. So as a result of that, the suit was called the London drape suit. And he's got great cap-toe shoes on. Those are nice. Thanks, Chris. Here's Steven. Pinstripes became a standard element in men's suiting in the 30s. So it has generous cut, long draping trousers, as well as that total deco jacket. And the upturned cuffs on the pants really complete the 30s look there. Steven's very handsome. Thanks, Steven. Here's Paul. He has a fabulous example of late 30s single-breasted three-piece suit. So the three-piece suit may have been a sign of prosperity returning after the New Deal, I think. But towards the end of the 1930s, we start to see a scaling down of excess details on the suits. What are you doing now? So at this time, we start to see more single-breasted instead of double-breasted suit. Paul's a great model. Okay, lastly for guys here, this is Travis, and he has the famous Palm Beach suit. This is good stuff, let me tell you. So in about 1935, as a result of the New Deal program, signs of prosperity were returning. And the rebounding economy kind of demanded a redesign of the business suit to signal the successful status of a man who was wearing it. So the most sought-after versions of this double-breasted Palm Beach suit was the one with a belted back or a sports back. Can you see that on Travis there? That is good stuff right there. Okay, so this is like the summer suit of the United States, and it was touted as the Wall Street businessman's suit on hot days. And really, that belted back is awesome. Travis's suit is the envy of all Lindy Hoppers and Balboa dancers. Oh my gosh, you guys look amazing. That's it, your excuse. So let me mention something really fast about our DJ. Okay, so all the music you're hearing, this is a well-researched DJ, Freddie Dickinson here. Let me tell you. So all the music you heard in the 20s is all from the 20s, actually. And all the music you heard in the 30s section is all from the 30s. And it will be the same in the 40s section. Nicely done, thanks.